why Trump should start his own internet version of fireside chats, and why the first one should be watching Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Trump has a number of useful tools at his disposal, which can help him get over the political and media machine that's working against him. He does exactly that by using Twitter to bypass the media, and set up targets for them to distract themselves with while he otherwise gets his message out. He could increase his reach and influence tenfold, and further bypass the media and go directly to the populace if he streamed an hour a week on whatever his preferred service, and talked about whatever he wanted. Similar to FDR's fireside chat radio shows. Trump could get directly into millions of American homes and mobile devices, and speak as directly to America as anyone could, more directly than on television, and he could do it as long as he wanted, and say literally whatever he wanted. I think the best way to facilitate that is to set aside some time where he could talk with us, show us what he is doing, and explain his agenda, deal with questions or distract from corrupt media smears. The ability to stream should be a politician's dream, because you can directly control what is being said, and with someone like Trump, you know millions of people would watch and analyze whatever he had to say. As a bonus, like Twitter, he could give his defenders online a better medium than television to spread his message and further his agenda, and it would help them avoid having to pay attention to the rest of the lying establishment mass media altogether. The best pilot I can think of to start this is by streaming Trump watching and later commenting on the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, a movie from a time when Hollywood cared about virtues and when they believed in America and Americans, before the medium fell into degeneracy, leftism, and the innate desire to hate the flyover country that built them and made them wealthy and admired to begin with. An example to harken back to, and contrast with how terrible Hollywood is now, with their sex scandals and terrible morals and terrible message and lack of passion and lack of originality. People are tired of their double standards, their dismissive elitism, and their utter and complete contempt for the United States of America. You can contrast what the movie Mr. Smith meant and how it treated Americans and our ideals with how Hollywood does nothing but shit on us now. Say something akin to, this is what Hollywood used to be, what they could do, and the power of their art, before it became all about safe money, elitism, and turned into a propaganda wing for the far left. In that movie, an outsider is appointed to a vacant Senate seat and finds himself in D.C. as a senator, but hopefully unprepared for what he would encounter. In good and bad ways. He is such a patriot with such a deep understanding of the ideals and principles behind the founders' actions in government that he is emotionally overwhelmed when he arrives there. To be in the same place as the people he admired so much, to see monuments to them and their actions and ideals everywhere, to be standing directly where history was made, to see the places he had read about and thought about so many times right in front of him left him in awe and wonder. He was also naive as to how the political system is wrought with corruption, so those high ideals he thought everyone wanted to live up to had long ago been cast away by a cynical, greedy, bitter, and corrupt system. How going to D.C. seems to just ruin people, no matter how those same people enter. While there, he found corrupt people who stopped believing in the principles and virtues that originally made America. However, that he merely believed was enough to break through the jaded outlook of those around him, and allow them to believe it all once again too. He encountered the corrupt political machine and decided to stand against it, because the ideals he believed in were worth it. That dragon was worth slaying. He encountered wealthy donors controlling a political machine in order to personally enrich themselves, which sounds familiar and relevant to today. The various corporate and foreign donors who buy influence with the United States government. Also, they can skim off the public dollar and use the authorized and legal force of the government as a cudgel against the little guy when it suits them. Exactly the sorts of things the founders warned against. Samuel Adams said, "Men will be free no longer than while they remain virtuous." And the Mr. Smith movie embodies just that. When the politicians, business magnates, and media types exchange virtue and truth for power, wealth, and influence, they doom the government to corruption. When the populace allows this, it corrupts the public too, and the whole damn thing falls apart. You need a virtuous and informed populace to choose virtuous and informed people to be their leaders. That was the specific basis Montesquieu laid out to justify an enlightened social contract based on the notions of liberty. The same basis, along with other Enlightenment philosophy, that the founders used to stir the fires of the revolution and create history's first nation that really was to be for, of, and by the people. The founders specifically and explicitly said many times that without virtue, you can't have good people or a good government. Mr. Smith learns that lesson the hard way. He finds himself on the opposite side of the political machine. They forge fake documents to incriminate him and get him thrown out of the Senate in disgrace. Accuse and convict him of corruption before he can do the same to them. That also sounds familiar, and the idea is still so relevant that it stings. He is about to give up on it all when the woman helping him, Saunders, returns and joins them because his belief in the ideals behind the United States gave her a reason to believe once again too. With her help, he finds a way to take on the political and media machine that is stacked against him. The parallels to Trump are not a perfect one-to-one ratio by any means, but the themes are similar enough, I think that they would be easy for Trump to convince the American people that the machine is working against him just the same way. Use it to illustrate how they stack the deck, lie, manipulate, and buy off everyone they can in order to hide their own corruption, and retain their own death grip on power. Except, unlike Mr. Smith, Trump is well aware of the corruption in D.C. and from the media. He came into it knowing that, and with a plan to dismantle it in his own way, using the same ideals and tenacity Smith used, but in a codified and consistent plan. And one that is slowly starting to work. It is starting to drain the political media and propaganda swamps. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is in the Library of Congress, so Trump could easily get the rights to stream it if he wanted to. He should do so, and then talk about the parallels to his own experiences. Use it to set up his allies in the alt media, and really drag the lying media and politicians through the mud they so deserve to be dragged through.